Indianapolis businessman Tim Durham lived like a Hollywood playboy.
Tim liked flash. He liked car companies and cigar bars and ultra lounges and yachts.
He dates models, drives super exotic cars.
I had a nail in the tire, cost $22,000.
And owns a $6 million yacht.
I mean, I like material things, absolutely. I think that's what drives the American economy. I think everybody's materialistic.
Durham's ambition? To be the world's richest man.
At the end of the day, when I breathe my last breath, I'd like to be worth more than anyone else in the world.
But this master of the universe perverts Midwestern values by stealing $200 million from blue-collar workers, farmers, firemen, school bus drivers.
And I just would like to ask him, was it worth it? Where you are now, was it really, would you do it again?
I first shot with Playboy in 2006 and 2007. And then I was on Beauty and the Geek, season 3.
Megan Hauserman is a reality TV star known for her work on dating shows.
I was on VH1's Rock of Love, Charm School, and Rock of Love 2. VH1's I Love Money. And then I had my own show, Megan Wants a Millionaire.
In the summer of 2007, Megan gets a call from her modeling agency. But it's not her typical gig. The client isn't a fashion photographer or film director. He's an Indiana businessman named Tim Durham.
And Tim contacted the agency saying that he was having a big 44th birthday party in which he wanted to do as a Playboy-style mansion theme. And he wanted to hire about 25 girls from a modeling agency in LA and fly them out for his party.
The 25 models are flown to Indianapolis, first class. At the airport, they're picked up in Rolls Royces. And then they're off to a mysterious destination.
Well, we were driving through basically the woods in the middle of nowhere. You know, there was small, moderate family homes, and then all of a sudden there's like a castle. It looks like a hotel or a resort or something, and it was his house.
Hi, I'm Tim Durham.
Durham's party, the likes of which Indianapolis has never seen, is coming up later. His story begins in Seymour, Indiana. Seymour inspired the song Small Town by John Mellencamp, who has deep family roots here and grew up in Seymour about the same time Tim Durham did. But farms, tractors, and little pink houses don't impress Durham much, as he explained in this 2007 interview with CNBC.
I didn't come from, a wealthy background. My dad is a dentist. I think he drove a Honda for, 15 years, and he said, this is good enough. I can get my golf clubs in the bag, and that's really all you need in life. And that was his philosophy. He never had any aspirations for money, to make money. So I'm not sure actually where I got that desire from, because my mother really didn't either. But I always did have an aspiration to do that.
By his first year of law school, Durham has already topped his old man. According to former classmates, he arrives at Indiana University in a BMW. After graduating near the top of his class, he joins one of the most prestigious law firms in town, Ice Miller.
I know some people who worked with him at Ice Miller, and he was certainly well-regarded, viewed as ambitious, very smart.
Reporter Greg Andrews has written dozens of articles about Tim Durham's business ventures.
So there were no signs of sort of an underside of Tim Durham at that point. He was seemed to be on a very traditional, successful path.
He married Joan Servas, who was the daughter of a longtime city councilman, very powerful guy here, Bert Servas.
He was not someone who was in the paper all the time, but he certainly was in a position to make things happen and did make things happen.
In addition to running city council, Bert Servas is a master of the leveraged buyout, using debt to buy companies and then working to fix them and flip them for a profit.
And Bert took his new son-in-law under his wing and taught him the game of leveraged buyouts.
And he basically sat me down one day and said, if you really want to do well in life and make money, you need to get into equity. You need to get into owning and managing companies and that kind of thing. Quit working for people doing the deals and do the deals yourself.
By the late 1990s, Durham's marriage is ended. But business is just starting to take off. He goes out on his own and buys his first company, Lake City Forge in Michigan.
When I started, I bought a forging operation, put a machine shop with it, did real well. I virtually had no money, so borrowed everything. And, I think I netted somewhere around 14, 15 million on that first deal. So it helps if your first deal works. And so that propelled me into a lot of other ventures.
In 2001, Durham founds Obsidian Enterprises. Obsidian's purpose is to buy out small manufacturing companies that are leaders in their industries. At the time, Jeff Osler is Tim Durham's brother-in-law and a vice president at Obsidian. Osler says that while winning is important to Durham, the most important thing is the appearance of success.
It was about perception. It was about what other people perceived Obsidian was.
Durham hires a tailor to make custom-made suits for everyone in Obsidian's office. At Christmas, everyone gets a Rolex. If the point is to create a halo effect around Durham and Obsidian, it works.
I just thought it might be a machine we'd want to finance. The doctors using it are making a ton on it.
Soon, money starts to flow into his sister company, Obsidian Capital Partners, which allows wealthy individuals to invest their own money in Tim Durham's deals.
Based on his record with those earlier leveraged buyouts, a who's who of Indianapolis investors all flocked to be part of this.
In 2002, Durham makes a trade that really puts him on the map. He acquires stock in Brightpoint, an Indianapolis-based distributor of cell phones.
I think its market cap got at one point as high as $2 billion, and then it fell all the way down to $6 to $8 million. It was just unreal. Looked at that and said, this is worth a bet, and started acquiring stock, and I put about $1 million in it. But it rebounded, the company did well, came back, 4 or 5 years later, and I made somewhere between 30 and 40 million on that deal. For $1 million investment, it was a good deal.
Tim Durham is on a roll, and it looks like nothing can stop him. Next on American Greed, a $6 million yacht, a $1.8 million sports car, a mansion with every possible amenity.
And we wallpapered the ceiling, which is another unusual treatment, but my decorator can do a lot with an unlimited budget.
And later, party planning Durham style.
Then we went to the mall, and he just pulled out a credit card and said anything we needed we could get. And he wanted us to be really happy for the party.
In Indianapolis, businessman Tim Durham says he has made tens of millions of dollars in the leveraged buyout business. But he longs to replace the M in millionaire with a B.
At the end of the day, when I breathe my last breath, I'd like to be worth more than anyone else in the world.
Statements like this rub many people the wrong way, says reporter Daniel Komisky.
In the Midwest, we tend to be humble. When we have money, we don't want people to know it. He was none of those things.
Durham offers no apologies for his bold ambition.
People ask me, why do you say that? And I said, it's like, I don't think Michael Jordan ever went out on the basketball court and said, man, I just hope I'm mediocre today. I don't think Tiger Woods tried to play in a golf tournament where he said, I hope I come in the middle of the pack.
The self-styled Michael Jordan of leveraged buyouts goes on a spending spree in the early 2000s. He buys up nitty-gritty companies, including a rubber recycler in Mississippi, a trailer manufacturer in Indiana, and a company that makes tour buses. But a big opportunity comes in 2002 when Durham's brother-in-law and business scout Jeff Osler tells him about a company that's for sale in Akron, Ohio. Its name is Fair Finance.
I read through the memorandum. Looked like a very solid company, very strong earnings, very consistent earnings.
Here's how Fair Finance makes money. Suppose a health club has $100,000 in accounts receivable it expects to collect from members over the next year. Fair Finance might offer the club $90,000 to buy the debt outright. The club gets cash immediately and doesn't have to worry about collections. Fair Finance, which has a team of collectors, might be able to get most of the $100,000 owed. Every dollar over its investment of $90,000 is profit. The more it collects, the more profit it makes.
So it's not a flashy, super exciting business, but it could be a very profitable one. And FAIR had done it for many, many decades.
To buy consumer debt on a large scale, Fair Finance needs lots of cash. It gets it from individual investors who buy Fair Finance investment certificates. The certificates are a popular savings vehicle for middle-class Ohioans like Harold Crawford, who retired from the Akron Fire Department after 33 years of service.
I advise it for any young fellow who want to be a fireman because we have a lot of fun. We're a big family.
Though Crawford loves the life of a fireman, it comes at a painful cost. When he dies, his wife doesn't get his pension.
And I got thinking about this. I said, I got to make some money to put in the bank and don't use.
His father has invested in Fair Finance since 1936 and has seen steady returns. He highly recommends this locally owned and family-run company to his son.
And I started putting money in there and built a pretty good account. And all the time, Fair Finance was great.
Oh, I like this picture. This is my favorite family picture. It's Dad and Mom's 60th wedding anniversary. That's how I remember Dad smiling.
Jane Kalina and Donna Immel's father, Herman Nussbaum, started investing in Fair Finance in 1965.
Dad was a very frugal man. He worked very hard all his life. He was a farmer and a part-time mason, so whenever he had extra money, he would invest it into a certificate. When the Fair family had it, it was a very, very good investment, so that's where he put his money.
Barb Lukasik is a former nun who now babysits children. When she leaves the sisterhood to care for her sick father, she is far behind in planning for retirement. Lukasik puts every extra penny into Fair Finance and eventually accrues $125,000.
And the reason I went with Fair Finance, my Uncle Joe knew Mr. Ray Fair, and everyone, including my uncle, loved him. They said he was a wonderful man, very honest, and he said, Barb, I think you should do this.
So in 2002, when Tim Durham buys Fair Finance from Donald Fair, the son of the company's founder, he's buying a company with a track record of success and a history of honesty. Durham buys it not through Obsidian, but through a new entity, Durham Cochran Investments, which he's founded with a friend, James Cochran. The investors who speak with American Greed say they are unaware of the change in ownership.
I had no clue that in 2002 that Fair Finance was sold to Mr. Durham. I don't remember seeing it in any of the circulars.
I didn't know about it. Nobody knew it. And once years went by, I guess 2 or 3 years went by before anybody learned that it was sold.
By the time they find out, it will be too late. There's a new captain at the helm of Fair Finance, and investors will be shocked to see where their money is going.
Usually pay $200,000 to $300,000 over a sticker.
Oh my!
Yeah. So they're about $1.8 million all in.
$1.8 million.
I had a nail in the tire, and they run flat, so it never went flat. But then I had to change the tire. It cost $22,000.
$22,000 for a tire.
That was my money.
Up next, the Hugh Hefner of the Heartland.
Well, he wanted to kind of style it like a Playboy mansion party. So, he wanted all the girls to wear lingerie and Playboy outfits.
Hi, I'm Tim Durham.
He's never been shy about trumpeting his success.
Come on in and see where I hang out.
And in 2007, Tim Durham opens up his life to the local and national media.
Tim courted attention at that time.
Daniel Comiskey is deputy editor of Indianapolis Monthly.
In my business, I have to call rich guys a lot, and the answer almost always is forget about it. Tim not only was willing to speak to me, he wanted to have me out, he wanted to be in the magazine, he wanted to give me all the access I needed.
Durham invites Comiskey and also a CNBC documentary crew down to Miami to see his yacht.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 100-foot boat. It's an azimuth. I think they run between $6-7 million. I had a smaller boat, and as I said, you kind of graduate up from small boats, bigger boat to bigger boat to bigger boat, and you finally go, okay, this is enough.
The Obsidian costs $5,000 a month just to dock, and it burns 250 gallons of gasoline per hour.
Well, I just reflect on how much money I spend, not necessarily how lucky I am.
I believe that yacht had 7 bedrooms, and every bedroom had its own bathroom with beautiful tile work and, glass stairs lit from below up to the upper deck.
I mean, I like material things, absolutely. I think that's what drives the American economy. I think everybody's materialistic.
On deck is Tim's girlfriend, Jamie Farrow, who was Playboy magazine's Miss January 1997.
This is my brief moment of photojournalism here, shooting Jamie Farrow reading Playboy like this. Best shot I've ever taken.
Life is good, and Durham makes a show of spreading his good fortune.
He would tip everyone a $100 bill, every last person, the guy who tied up the boat, the girl who served him a drink on the boat. When we went out to restaurants, every busboy who came by got a $100 tip. He wanted people to know how rich he was.
It's always the same.
Durham takes CNBC on a tour of his home, a 12,000 square foot mansion on the shores of Indianapolis' Geist Reservoir. Realtor Greg Cooper knows the territory.
It's a very affluent area. The waterfront property is limited, so it's highly sought after, and the properties along the front of the water proper are very, very expensive.
Well, this is my house.
Chateau Durham has wallpaper on the ceilings and fine art on the walls.
This series is one that Peter sent me for my birthday.
Durham counts as a friend pop artist Peter Max, who creates this Warhol-esque portrait.
You did one for Schwarzenegger, you did one for Clinton. It's a set, you keep them together, and they've got to stay in this position.
Well, I think the message is pretty hard to miss. It's a huge wall of Tim Durham's face, right? It's a monument to his ego. There's no hiding behind that, nor would he have wanted to.
These 2 chairs are for people to sit here and just admire me for hours.
But cars are his biggest obsession. He builds a 2-story, 20-car garage. But that holds just a fraction of his collection of 70 automobiles, from classics like Duesenbergs.
It really is like having a lot of little kids.
To this $1.8 million Bugatti.
If I lose the key, it's $5,000 to replace the key. So I watch the key very closely. Yeah, everything about that car is expensive.
But he also has some everyday cars.
A friend of mine is, I was telling you about, Ludacris, called me one day. He always asks me every day, what car are you in? What car are you in? I said, well, it's rainy today, so I'm in a Bentley. He goes, that's your rainy day car?
For office space, Durham rents the top floor of the Chase Tower, the highest point in Indiana.
Well, you took the elevator to the top floor of the Chase Tower, and as soon as you got off the elevator, there was a large wall of glass with glass doors. You walked through it. And Tim's office itself was huge. I mean, it was the size of a house, and it was very high-priced real estate. There were only a handful of people who worked there in this enormous office. So it was not about doing business. It was about image.
While Durham works hard to craft public perception, some insiders at Obsidian are growing concerned about his spending. Jeff Osler, once Durham's brother-in-law and senior vice president at Obsidian, says Durham can blow $100,000 a day in Las Vegas.
My concern was, as quick as it's getting spent, how do we continue to make it? We can't make it quick enough before it's gone.
If the personal spending wasn't concerning enough, there's the apparent change in business strategy. No longer content buying Rust Belt factories, Durham pumps money into vanity projects, restaurants, nightclubs, magazines. He's even gone Hollywood, buying National Lampoon, the once great comedy brand that has since fallen on hard times. But maybe National Lampoon is a perfect fit, because Tim Durham's life is a rich man's Animal House.
I had some ideas on it was going to be pretty crazy and pretty big, but had no idea it was going to be what it was.
In the summer of 2007, Durham throws himself a 45th birthday party. Calling it a pajama party, he says for one weekend, his house will be like the Playboy Mansion.
They had a body paint artist there. So a lot of the models were basically, their pajamas were painted on. He had girls from Playboy there, a lot of naked women, B-list movie stars.
This is a picture of Kato Kalin mingling with his guests at his birthday party.
Megan Hauserman, a model and reality TV star, is one of about 25 women flown in from L.A. to make the party more festive.
There was just, all the girls were just there to have a good time. We were just drinking, you know, obviously there was several open bars. And we were kind of just looked at by the local Indiana residents. Like, where did these girls come from?
Amid the ice sculptures shaped as dollar signs, Tim Durham holds court.
He had a huge stack of $100 bills in his pocket. He was walking around in silk pajamas, thinking he was Hugh Hefner with like a girl on each of his arms.
And the birthday cake itself?
On display in Tim's car museum in front of his $2 million Bugatti, he had a gigantic cake with his face printed on it, and it was like $1 million bill. And then once the party got started, he was just throwing money everywhere, throwing $100 bills off his balcony over like the dance floor. And he was pretty crazy. It just seemed like it wasn't, you know, people that throw around that much money doesn't seem like they worked very hard for it. Like something didn't seem right.
Up next on American Greed, an old friend drops a dime on Durham, and the FBI gets a warrant for his phone.
I mean, it's just basically we make $28 million alone, it's just vanished. Well, familiar.
By 2008, Tim Durham has moved to Los Angeles. He owns this $3 million house in the Hollywood Hills and also rents this 16,000 square foot mansion for $25,000 a month. But he still keeps this 12,000 square foot mansion in Indiana.
There was very little about Indianapolis that he loved. Tim was from this place, but not really of it. You know, he liked the fast life in Los Angeles.
In L.A., Durham hangs with stars, like the rapper Ludacris, and dates a new girlfriend, a model actress and former Penthouse Pet of the Year, Erica Taylor. Durham says he needs to be closer to one of the jewels in his crown, LA-based National Lampoon. Little does he know, trouble at Lampoon will be the beginning of the end. On December 17, 2008, Durham's friend and business partner in Lampoon, Dan Lakin, steps down as the company's CEO after he's indicted for allegedly manipulating its stock price. Facing jail time, Dan Lakin says he has a story to tell about his old friend. Special Agent Dennis Hallidan oversees the investigation for the FBI.
He said that Tim Durham's lifestyle was essentially financed by a company out of Ohio called Fair Finance. He described the company as almost like a bank, and that Tim had taken loans and about $100 million out of the company over a period of years, and that it was the source of all his wealth.
Fair Finance is the consumer financial company in Ohio that Durham bought in 2002. About 5,000 investors, primarily middle-class retirees, get steady returns from Fair Finance. Many families, like the family of investor Barb Lukasik, have been with Fair for generations and know the founder, Ray Fair.
From what I've gathered over the years, he was a wonderful man, and it was a wonderful company. Everybody had great respect for him and for the company.
Many investors don't know the company has been sold to Tim Durham. Herman Nussbaum, a retired farmer, has $170,000, his entire nest egg, invested in Fair. He always plows the returns back into the company.
And I just said, well, Dad, I said, maybe it'd be a good idea to diversify a little bit. He said, no. He said, Fair Finance has treated me well, and I don't have any problems with it. And he went and reinvested it.
Around the same time that Dan Lakin talks to the FBI, Greg Andrews, editor of the Indianapolis Business Journal, gets a call from an anonymous source. This deep throat tells much the same story as Dan Lakin, that Tim Durham is plundering Fair Finance.
He ended up using Fair like it was his own personal bank. He needed money, he would just draw it out of Fair.
Andrews discovers that Durham withdraws millions from Fair Finance in the form of loans to himself and the businesses in his leveraged buyout empire. But these aren't loans like the average home mortgage or car loan.
I think these were loans in quotation marks. Maybe they were originally intended to be loans, but they weren't repaid. A lot of times there was very little documentation.
Andrews' investigation reveals these loans bankroll Durham's lavish lifestyle and allow him to perpetuate the illusion that he's a successful businessman.
When these loans that he made to himself and to his friends and to his other failing businesses got bigger and bigger and bigger, there was a point that he must have thought to himself, there's no way I'll ever pay this money back.
Across town at FBI headquarters, Special Agent Dennis Hallidan subpoenas bank records for Fair Finance to see if these allegations might be true.
Ultimately, the records kind of bore out what Dan Lakin was saying. And over a period of years, the records showed that about $90 million had been sent from Ohio to accounts here in Indianapolis that were under the control of Mr. Durham.
Though he needs more evidence to prove it, Agent Hallidan suspects Durham is perpetrating a massive financial crime. In the fall of 2009, he gets a warrant to tap Durham's phone and sets up a wire room to run round the clock. Up next, Durham and his gang live like ballers, but they're desperate for dollars.
I brought another $383,000 to my mother-in-law. How do I explain this?
In November 2009, FBI agents listen as Tim Durham huddles up with his inner circle, Jim Cochran, who is now Fair Finance's chairman, and Rick Snow, the company's chief financial officer. They have a lot to talk about. In the wake of reporter Greg Andrews' expose of Fair Finance, investors are worried that Tim Durham is using their money to fund his extravagant lifestyle.
The wiretap, that's all they talked about, was how they were basically going to keep investors from figuring out the true condition of the company, and this was all done on the phone.
Yeah, most of the big-time investors that had 200,000+, I've had lots of conversations with.
Jim Cochran is Durham's point man in Ohio. These days, he's answering anxious questions from investors.
Most have asked directly, if you take the money and use it to your own benefit, our money, investors' money. Of course, I said no. And, you're not buying houses and cars with this money. And I said no. Okay, well, then we're okay.
Saying they're okay could not be further from the truth, according to the FBI.
Very quickly, we realized that Tim Durham was broke, and so was Fair Finance, that they were struggling to make redemptions to investors. They were delaying interest payments to investors.
Do those two really have to go out today?
In one case, Durham delays paying the grieving heirs of an investor who has just died.
And let me tell you what, death is easy to push out. You can just tell the executor of the state, sorry, you got to wait a couple more weeks. I just don't see that as a big issue. No, I don't either. They're not going to redeposit with us anyway, so who gives it? I agree.
At this time, in November 2009, the stakes could not be higher. Durham is trying to raise more money from investors than he ever has before, $250 million. But to issue the debt, Durham needs the formal approval of Ohio regulators. Like students cramming for a final, they're gathering hundreds of pages of documents to make their case. But Durham remains confident.
At one point, they kind of chuckled to themselves that they really don't expect a lot of trouble with the securities regulators because the guy at the state securities office didn't seem that sharp.
My feeling is give them a shitload more information so that there's just so much it overwhelms the guy. My guess is the guy at the state of Ohio is a financial genius. Yeah, no, I think you're right.
Their contempt is also apparent when it comes to investors. Durham and Cochran discuss a TV commercial they've produced that they think will smooth over everything.
We'll just start and run that something that everybody can see it.
I'll tell you what, I watched that thing. It's pretty damn good.
An Ohio company celebrating 75 years of service. We have weathered the storm. Together, we are Fair Finance.
Well, if you're an investor, you're at peace. You're at total peace with that.
Under Durham's watch, Fair Finance has changed its business model. Instead of buying accounts receivable, it is now primarily lending money to Tim Durham and his companies. But as Agent Hallidan explains, most of these loans aren't being paid back, and most likely never will be.
Champion Trailer had a loan with Fair Finance of $8.8 million. It was out of business, but yet it still owed money. Pyramid Coach, another business that was out of business at the end, owes $6 million. He's representing that these are all collectible loans, that these are loans that will pay at some point.
Bankrupt companies rarely repay their debts. But in this recording, Jim Cochran brags about how he has fooled an investor, telling him these worthless loans are valuable assets.
We thought it would be a good idea to grow more than 3 to 6% a year. And he said, well, I can understand that. He goes, my growth is I like to be at 15 to 20%. I said, exactly. I said, that's what we think we should be, and that's why we started changing a little bit and doing some of the other transactions that we control.
You are good, Mr. Cochran.
Well, it's, I'm just...
you are the best at this.
The conversation showed that they had the intent to deceive investors about the true condition, that they needed new money. They needed to entice investors to bring in money to invest in the company, to buy certificates, to keep everything going. If the money stopped, the music stopped.
Next on American Greed, Special Agent Hallidan believes he needs to move now before more investors get burned.
We had to step in and shut it down.
In Akron, Ohio, Fair Finance investor Barb Lukasik makes most of her money running a home-based daycare. She doesn't take in much, barely enough to pay her bills. But as a former nun, she's accustomed to living simply, and she says she does it because she loves children.
I've been doing it probably now over 25 years because some of my oldest ones are finished with college, on to jobs, and it's been a real blessing for me and for them.
Lukasik has managed to save $125,000, her life savings, which she has invested with Fair Finance. In November 2009, as the FBI listens in to Tim Durham's phone calls, Lukasik contacts Fair Finance to request a withdrawal of $10,000 of her money.
I had wanted to take some money out to redo the kitchen because it really needed it, and lots of things in the house. And the lady said, oh, it'll take a few weeks. I said, that's fine. Well, it never happened.
On November 24, 2009, more than 20 FBI agents arrive at Monument Circle in downtown Indianapolis to execute a search warrant at the headquarters of Durham's Obsidian Enterprises.
All the TV stations broadcasting live from the Circle. It couldn't have been a bigger statement by the FBI.
As Fair Finance investors are shut out, confusion quickly gives way to despair.
And this little lady over in the curb was crying. And I walked over to her and I asked her, what's the matter? I said, you're cold, it was snowing. I said, you want to get warm in my car? And she said, no. She said, I'm all right, I have my car. She says, but I don't have no money, no more.
On March 16, 2011, Tim Durham, Fair Finance's chairman Jim Cochran, and CFO Rick Snow are indicted on multiple counts, including conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, and securities fraud. All three go to trial, which begins at the Federal Building in downtown Indianapolis in June 2012.
I'm anxious to get on with it.
In his defense, Durham says the phone taps captured him at the worst period of his life, trying to keep his companies afloat in the middle of a historic financial crisis. Special Agent Hallidan says that's no excuse.
Fair Finance was broke. He was running a Ponzi scheme in the traditional sense. If he didn't have new investors coming in the door, with cash in hand, it would not be possible for him to pay his bills. That's the traditional Ponzi.
The heart of the case is the $144 million in loans Fair Finance made to Tim Durham, his friends, family, and related entities. Though these loans had never been repaid, Durham told investors they were assets of Fair Finance.
I wasn't sure about all of this until I heard those phone calls, and that's when I thought not only was this a Ponzi scheme, but he knew it.
Is there I'm sure if this didn't go through, we're going to be sued like hell. Is there a way we can go to jail here?
No. I mean, would somebody ever try?
In real estate loans? Huh?
No.
Okay.
You can't go to jail for taking real estate loans.
Durham's lavish spending also proves to be damning evidence at trial. In the fall of 2009, as Durham withholds payments to investors like Barb Lukasik, he gets an email from his jeweler. He has bought his girlfriend, Erica Taylor, a diamond bracelet. The email reads, "Thank you very much for your purchase of the Beaudry City Lights bracelet. I think it looks gorgeous on Erica's wrist. The retail was $30,635, and your special price is $22,950.
I feel sad that his greed was so much more important than anybody else's needs.
On June 20th, 2012, Durham, Cochran, and Snow are found guilty on multiple counts, including wire fraud and securities fraud. At the sentencing hearing, victims explain how the loss has affected their lives. Some elderly retirees say they can no longer afford eyeglasses or medicine. Barb Lukasik eventually gets a modest kitchen upgrade, thanks to donations from friends, family, and even a few strangers. But her future will never be secure.
I will have to watch children until God calls me home because I only get $102 Social Security. And so I have to be able, that wouldn't pay one of my utility bills.
Jane Kalina and Donna Immels speak for their father, Herman Nussbaum, who lost $170,000 and has since passed away.
Jane wrote this letter and said to Mr. Durham, you might think that you're the richest man on earth or whatever, but you're not. My dad is one of the richest men on earth. He has his integrity. He has his family. He has his values, his morals. He's just a man of integrity.
Judge Jane Magnus Stinson sentences Rick Snow to 10 years in prison, James Cochran to 25 years, and she sentences Tim Durham to 50 years in prison. As she watches him walk out of the courtroom, Jane Kalina wishes she could say one more thing.
He was shuffling his feet in his prison garb, being shackled, and I just would like to ask him, was it worth it? Where you are now, was it really, would you do it again?
By 2014, the mansion that was once the scene of decadent parties is in disrepair. When realtor Greg Cooper showed the property to a client, squatters were living inside.
I suppose the classic irony of a place like this is that for the parties that were held here and all of the off the Richter scale level of debauchery that went on, it's kind of a humble contrast now to see the house in the condition that it's in.
The house finally sold for just over $2 million, pennies on the dollars that Durham spent here.
And the girlfriend was gone, and his house was gone. His 40 cars were repossessed. So it was all gone. And apparently it had a very flimsy foundation the entire time he owned this stuff.
A bankruptcy trustee in Cleveland is retained to sell off assets and try to reimburse investors. But they don't find much real value. His mansion has more debt than it is worth. But what about the car collection that was Durham's pride and joy?
Cars, though, are making me money. So I have a justification for keeping the cars.
If only that were true. The fact is, the Bugatti is leased, and few of the cars are owned outright.
They were all had various debt on them, so it sort of furthered his aura of being the really wealthy guy, when in reality, when those were claimed and sold by the bankruptcy trustee, they got almost nothing because they had to pay off all the loans.
The man who specialized in leveraged buyouts leveraged everything and conned his way from a quintessential small town to the Hollywood Hills to prison.
It's so odd to think of someone who has lived this kind of lifestyle, who is now in a cell in a federal prison probably for the rest of his life. I mean, it's from the highest high to the lowest low in just a period of a couple of years. It's a classic American story in some ways.
Glad you guys could come by and take a look around. So thanks again, and we'll see you later.
Michael Locke is a man with ambition.
I was a young man that grew up. I always had the aspirations of being rich.
And rich he is.
Michael really saw how you could make money. He was worried about costs. He was worried about how to distribute the wealth in his organization. So he understood the business model.
A business model taking him from cocaine dealing to bank fraud.
You know, there's an old saying that you can steal more money with a ballpoint than at gunpoint. It's absolutely true.
And he has a surefire way to beat the competition.
The victim would be duct taped, pistol whipped. If his family's in the house, they pistol whipped as well.
But Locke's real secrets are buried right in his own backyard. On the north side of Milwaukee, the 4900 block of Febron Street offers a perfect picture of an all-American family neighborhood. With an elementary school at one end and a fire station at the other. And in August 2005, when a young woman, Stacy Happel, buys a house here, there is just one thing she doesn't like: a pair of concrete slabs in the backyard. The former owner, a man named Michael Locke, reportedly had dog kennels there. Happel wants them gone. Her boyfriend and a few others take on the job.
They start to break up the concrete, and underneath the concrete they see a plastic tarp.
Pulling back the tarp, they find a bone.
The boyfriend says that he initially thought that there were dogs buried under the concrete, and one of the guys helping him out says, "I don't think that's a dog bone."
He's right. The police are called, and they see immediately these bones are human. Milwaukee homicide detective Chris Blazak hears the news and knows instantly the department is in for a bizarre case.
Burying people in a backyard was something that we typically did not see in the city of Milwaukee.
Eventually, not one, but two bodies are discovered.
Identical. You can see a slight depression in the ground near the fence line over here. That's the location of where one of the bodies was recovered.
It is a grisly scene. No one knows who these people are, but the consensus is that one person has the answer: the former owner, Michael Locke.
If you asked some of us, we would say, of course, Michael Locke did this. For sure he was involved.
As one team of investigators digs into the graves, another digs into Locke's history, and that brings them to church. This is the Unity Gospel House of Prayer, founded by Michael Locke's grandfather. Today, the pastor is Locke's brother, Marlon.
I'm finna start preaching, talking about how good God's been.
But years ago, as an 8-year-old boy, Michael Locke is the one at the podium.
He played an active role in his church and was considered a talented and rising member of the parish of the church. They said that he would give stirring sermons.
From child preacher, Locke moves on to become a basketball star at Madison High School on Milwaukee's northwest side. After graduation, he attends cosmetology school and opens his own barbershop. Years later, Locke gives an interview from jail to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.
I was a young man that grew up. I always had the aspirations of, what you just say, being rich or having money to provide for my family, and I set out to do that.
That determination to be rich leads Locke to cocaine. In the 1990s, the drug trade is thriving in Milwaukee. And despite the fact that Locke's father has died from an overdose of cocaine and methadone, rumors say that the boy who used to preach on Sunday is now a man with a cocaine business that will one day bring in as much as $100,000 a week.
Officer Dean Newport from the Milwaukee Police Department had encountered Locke in the late 90s, as early as 1999. And the word he was receiving on the street was that this individual, Michael Locke, was involved in violent crimes, in particular in drug-related robberies and homicides.
And so Officer Newport keeps an eye on him. And when he gets a chance, stops Locke for a traffic violation and finds a handgun under the seat of Locke's car.
And at the time he came to me and he said, I believe this is a dangerous guy. I didn't feel he had enough evidence for us to sustain a conviction. So I basically said, I believe you. Now let's go get the evidence that we need to hold him accountable for a longer period of time.
But Locke plays it smart. He always keeps a legitimate business in operation. Now it is a home improvement company.
Everything I've ever done in my life put me on Front Street. I was always seen by the public eye because I was a servant of the public. You understand what I'm saying?
Criminal defense lawyer Russell Jones counts Locke as one of the savviest defendants he has ever worked with.
Michael really saw how you could make money, both legitimately and, according to the juries, illegitimately. But Michael, I think, understood the function of business. He was worried about costs. He was worried about how to distribute the wealth in his organization. So he understood the business model. He's a very smart guy.
But even smart guys can make mistakes. And in 2002, at a McDonald's in Milwaukee, Michael Locke sells 9 ounces of cocaine to a federal agent and is sentenced to 21 months in prison.
I was born and raised in the church, but me as a knucklehead, I did some things that I shouldn't have done, which was got involved with drug dealing. That's something that I've asked God for forgiveness for because I was totally wrong.
When Locke gets out of prison, he is, by all appearances, a changed man. Out on work release, he gets a job at a real estate company. He starts buying up buildings, fixing them up, and reselling them. Eventually, he heads to Bayside, a wealthy North Shore suburb where he opens his own mortgage brokerage company, World Financial Mortgage. And that is where he is when the police begin to investigate the bodies that have been buried in his old backyard for years.
There was a tremendous amount of decomposition of the body, and the flesh of the body almost eroded to the point where it was nearly almost a skeletal remains.
But the clothing on one body is intact. It is a uniform from a flower delivery service. It has a name, Cheney. The connection is easily made. Eugene Cheney, reported missing 5 years ago.
He was a Milwaukee area drug dealer. He dealt large amounts of cocaine with Michael Locke. He was a gambler. Michael Locke was a gambler.
With one victim identified, the investigators press on with a sense of urgency as the bodies reveal a violent end.
We knew that there was a dangerous person out there, someone that was capable of doing terrible things, and we had to find him.
In Milwaukee, convicted drug dealer Michael Locke is casting himself as a reformed man. He is now running his own mortgage business in a suburb north of the city. his secret past is catching up with him. Now, a DNA match proves that the second body is a man reported missing in Illinois 6 years ago. His name is Felipe Armando Melendez Rivas, and he died a violent death.
When his body was excavated, his body was wrapped up in a blue plastic tarp. His face was duct taped. A portion of the duct tape you could see was still shoved in his mouth as if he was still gagged from the day that he was killed.
What happened to Eugene Chaney and Armando Melendez is a mystery, but clues are filtering in. Homicide detective Randy Olson learns that a new informant, Lewis Jackson, claims he worked for Locke and knows something about the bodies.
At some point, Jackson felt that Michael Locke had crossed him, and he had this information about how he believed Michael Locke was involved with the two bodies on 49th and Febrance, and I believe it was, in his mind, his turn to make turnabout fair play.
Olson meets regularly with Jackson in Hawthorne Glen Park on the north side of the city. It is a perfect setting for clandestine conversations.
There's one road coming in. When we took seats at the picnic tables, we could see anybody coming in through the park entryway here.
From Lewis Jackson, Olson gets a new appreciation for how dangerous Locke is.
He's not just a street thug and a dope dealer, but he knows the law. He knows how police work. He's not a fool.
Later, Jackson allows an interview to be recorded.
Michael Locke was a hustler. Michael Locke would sell his mama if he had to.
Jackson tells Olson that in the late 90s, Locke moves from dealing drugs to kidnapping and robbing drug dealers. Locke's men call themselves the body snatchers.
We would kidnap major drug dealers who actually took photos of their family members, their daughters, their wives, girlfriends. In one case, I did follow a major Milwaukee drug dealer to his daughter's school. I took pictures of his daughter, loving family. So what? So after you kidnap them, it was easier for them to talk or to give you what you wanted.
If the victim does not cooperate in giving over drugs or cash, the body snatchers have an array of inducements.
Hot grease, hot water. Obviously, the victim would be duct taped, pistol whipped. If his family's in the house, they pistol whipped as well. Hot butane torches on your feet.
The description of Michael Locke provided by Lewis Jackson is chilling.
Working with Lewis Jackson was one of those pivotal moments where we were able to, again, develop a relationship with him and have him start to outline the real extent of the criminal enterprise that Mr. Locke was engaged in. This wasn't your ordinary street-level criminal.
These days, Locke has moved off the streets and into an office in the suburbs. He is running his own business, World Financial Mortgage, entirely on the up and up. Or is it? Jeffrey Doss, an investigator with the DA's office, thinks not.
In late 2004, early 2005, we began to get complaints to the DA's office from citizens about being ripped off in mortgage fraud type schemes. The name Mike Locke and some of his associates surfaced.
The reports come from people like Jim Larson, a mortgage lender who is suspicious of an application sent to his office.
What was suspect on this particular deal was all the improvements. There was allegedly new kitchen, new roof, new plumbing. The house had been upgraded, and it just wasn't right.
Larson does what many lenders rarely do. He decides to check out the property himself.
When I got out to the house, I knew very, very quickly that this was not a situation where there were a lot of improvements done.
Within minutes, Michael Locke shows up and escorts Larson inside.
I walked through the house. It was in very bad shape. So it was very clear to me that they were trying to steal from me. And I went into the kitchen. There was no refrigerator. It was in really, really bad shape.
Eventually, the house Larson inspected becomes part of a growing catalog of suspicious deals orchestrated by Michael Locke. Next, the drug dealer who turned to armed robbery and kidnapping is trying his hand at a new, highly lucrative game, mortgage fraud.
Michael Locke would dupe these lenders into wiring $165,000 of loan proceeds.
In a suburban strip mall north of Milwaukee, convicted drug dealer Michael Locke is operating his own business, World Financial Mortgage. Locke is already a prime suspect in the murder of 2 drug dealers buried in his old backyard. And now his business is also under investigation. With rumors of suspicious deals circulating, County District Attorney Investigator Jeff Doss looks into the company's bank records.
And that is particularly when the bubble burst, because we found hundreds of thousands of dollars being wire transferred through that business. World Financial is a mortgage origination office. They should not be getting those kinds of funds. What they should be getting are reimbursement fees, loan origination fees, reimbursements for appraisals, that type of thing, but not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Doss digs deeper into the records, and he finds a familiar name, Stacy Happel, the woman who owns the house where 2 bodies were found in the backyard. It turns out she owns a number of other buildings as well, including this one at 1918 North 13th Street.
Oh, we discovered that Stacy Happel had purchased approximately 6 properties. They were all inner-city properties. What I initially noticed was that the area the homes were in didn't seem to justify the high amounts of the mortgages.
Investigators discover that Stacy Happel and Michael Locke have a history.
She had a relationship with Michael Locke, trusted him. He promised her that he would set her up in sort of as a landlord, a landlady. She'd own properties. He would take care of everything.
She is what is called a straw buyer, not a real property owner, just someone used to get financing to help defraud a mortgage lender. This is how the scheme works. In August 2004, the 13th Street property sells for $10,000. 5 months later, Stacy Happel buys it and gets a mortgage for $166,000. How could the value of a property increase $156,000 in just 5 months? The appraisal says that the house has been entirely renovated. It has a new kitchen and bathroom. But photographs taken by the DA's investigators tell an entirely different story. A rotting ceiling, corroded plumbing fixtures, and a kitchen that is unusable.
It was deplorable, it was unlivable. But at the time of the loan, of course, a photograph was taken from the outside and affixed to the appraisal sheet, and that's what's viewed by the lender in some other state, who would therefore assume that maybe this property is worth that amount of money.
The lender is sent the phony appraisal, but the lies don't end there. Happel also needs proof of gainful employment. No problem, Locke has that covered. A forged W-2 shows she works at a daycare center earning $46,000 a year. And so, with a fake appraisal and false information on the buyer's application, the bank is fooled.
The lender looks at all that, says this is a good risk, and lends. Typically, it was 100% financing back in that time frame. So Michael Locke would dupe these lenders into wiring $165,000 of loan proceeds.
Locke has help in pulling off the scheme. Chianti Clay finds the buildings and the straw buyers with good credit. Geronimo McCrae provides the fake appraisals. Marcus Leonard creates the fake documents. And there is Kevin Slayman, the man who runs a title company that receives the check from the bank. Slayman divvies up the money. But behind the scenes, Michael Locke calls the shots.
It's interesting that Michael Locke was clever enough that his fingerprints rarely, if ever, appear on these transactions. He doesn't ever own the properties. He's not the one that sets up the loan application. He's not. The documentation does not show his name. And so it's very hard to link him up to show that he was directing what was happening until you follow the money.
The money trail shows that for the house on 13th Street, the bank makes a loan for $166,000. The seller of the property agrees to take $65,000. After transaction costs, $89,000 is left for the schemers. Out of that, Michael Locke, whose name appears nowhere, gets $30,000 because this is his con.
This was extremely complicated, extremely sophisticated. When Michael Locke didn't have the professional savvy to perhaps understand a particular aspect of the fraud, he got somebody to help him. But the brains behind it, Michael Locke.
The scam is not possible without Stacy Happel. She has the good credit, the one thing that cannot be faked. But she gets conned too. Locke pays her $2,000 for each mortgage she obtains, 5 in all. But he does not pay the loans. She is slapped with multiple foreclosures and ends up in bankruptcy court.
These straw buyers were promised many things by Michael Locke, and all along he was leading them down the rosy path. And now that the houses have gone into foreclosure, their credit is ruined. It's ruined. He has left littered the landscape with victims.
With one rundown building after another, Locke is able to repeat his con over and over again, enticing credit-worthy young women into becoming pawns in his game.
He was a salesman, and that's the business aspect that Michael had. He could sell what he had to sell to almost anybody, and particularly women. Women were drawn to Michael.
Locke also has a keen sense of where easy money can be found. And these days, it is in mortgage fraud.
It was an epidemic in that time period, an epidemic. And the money was so easy for, there's an old saying that you can steal more money with a ballpoint than at gunpoint. It's absolutely true. You fake up a few documents, you find a few dupes to service your straw buyer, and you're off with $100,000 in profit.
Locke's new scam is bringing him good money now, but his old business tactics are coming to light. Up next on American Greed, a story of Locke's style of torture that comes with proof.
And ultimately, that grease was used to pour all over his body.
But first, Michael Locke tangles with the wrong straw buyer.
I said I would go to the authorities. I was like, I'm not going to be part of your shiesty deal.
For 6 months, a mystery remains unsolved in Milwaukee. What happened to 2 drug dealers found buried in a backyard on the north side of the city? Michael Locke, a convicted drug dealer himself, is the main suspect, but police do not have enough for an arrest. Locke is at large, now operating his own mortgage processing business from an office in a North Shore suburb. His targets these days are not drug dealers, but young women with good credit, like Lorraine Coutremanos.
How are you today?
She works at her family's restaurant in Racine and is a perfect victim for Locke. Hardworking, she pays her bills on time and even has a second job. She is also a teacher at St. Charles, a school for special needs students west of Milwaukee. That is where she meets Michael Locke. There, a co-worker who is well connected to Locke presents her with a business idea.
He said to me, you know, I've been buying homes and flipping them. It's really easy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not into that. I want something, you know, condo, low maintenance.
He presses her and even shows her a building. But she is not interested and thinks nothing of his offer until one day when she is working late.
I'm sitting at my desk working on schoolwork, and all of a sudden these guys come in. And I'm like, what's going on? I stood up. I was like, well, what's going on? And they're like, oh, take a seat, Lori. We want, you know, you to check something out or take a look at this. And I'm like, okay, this is really strange. Like, who are these people?
Cotromano says they are Michael Locke, Keontae Clay, and Kevin Slayman.
School's over and almost all the other staff were already gone. So then Kevin sits down and he has this big pile of papers, like, and he puts them in front of me and he's like, you know, this is a closing on a home, basically. And I'm like, a closing on what home? And he's like, the home that you're purchasing. And I'm like, no. You know, like, I'm not buying a home today. What are you talking about? There's no possible way. I haven't even filled out an application.
What she doesn't know is that this team of scammers got her social security number, checked her credit, and submitted applications for mortgages on this building totaling $95,000, which have been approved. Now she just needs to sign the papers.
I felt very threatened. I mean, I probably read the situation within 10 minutes of knowing what was going on, because I stood up and I seen how everybody moved closer to me, and I'm like, okay. You know, and I said I refused signing numerous times, and Kevin is right in front of me. And Michael Locke is like diagonal off towards the back of my classroom. And when I looked at him, I could tell that he was like, you know, you need to sign this. Basically, just sign the paperwork.
She knows she has no choice.
So I signed. You know, I just was like, okay, just sign these as quick as you can and get out of here. And when you get in your car, figure out what you're going to do, Lori, because you have now just somehow mysteriously out of nowhere bought a home in the middle of the ghetto.
Cotromanos leaves safely, but is now responsible for mortgage payments on a building she has never even seen. At the time, she tries to get the loan canceled, but no one will listen. Eventually, her good credit will be destroyed. In her fight to undo the transaction, she has a talk with Michael Locke.
I said I would go to the authorities. I was like, I'm not going to be part of your shiesty deal. I don't know what you people are doing. And he got rude, you know. He was like, you don't know who I am? You have no clue who I am, do you?
It's true. Cotromanos has no idea. But Milwaukee police detectives do. And now they think they have the proof they need. One of Locke's victims, Leoporium Ford, a convicted drug dealer, is claiming that he was tortured and robbed by Michael Locke.
Ultimately, I had an interview with Leo Ford at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And what I learned from Leo Ford was that he had been targeted several times by Michael Locke to be robbed.
Ford tells investigators that in 2002, he arrived at Locke's house on 53rd Street with half a kilo of cocaine to sell.
And that turned out to be a mistake for Leo Ford because he was robbed at that location and tortured over the course of several hours.
Ford reports, quote, "As soon as I got in the house, you know, I was rushed from behind, like 3 people grabbed me. They put like a clothes hanger around my arms and legs. They duct taped my eyes, they duct taped my mouth."
In addition to that, he started to tell us a story about how he could hear oil or the sound of oil crackling in the background at the time that his captors were interrogating him and beating him.
Ford says that one said, "I'm going to pour this on your body if you don't give me more drugs, don't give me more money."
And ultimately, that grease was used to pour all over his body, over portions of his legs and his back, which caused him severe pain.
Finally, one of Ford's men comes up with $3,000. Leo Ford is released.
The great thing about Mr. Ford is he was walking corroboration. He literally was walking corroboration because his body still bore the scars of the torture incident from 2002.
With Ford's report, law enforcement finally has a chance to make a real case against Michael Locke.
It gave us hope, is what it gave us. After that moment, I personally believed that that was the moment in which we were going to be able to hold him accountable.
Coming up on American Greed, at long last, the story behind the bodies in the backyard.
It's hard to get that picture out of your head when you know that this person was suffocated and then put into a hole.
Finally, after almost 2 years of investigating the homicides of 2 drug dealers buried in the backyard of a house on the north side of Milwaukee, prosecutors feel they have enough to make several arrests, but not for murder. Not yet. For now, the charges are for the kidnapping and torture of drug dealer Leoporium Ford. 4 people are brought in: Michael Locke, Locke's brother-in-law Ed Hankins, his employee Donald Cooper, and his uncle Carl Davis.
We had planned out this very much like a chess game, knowing that we were going to bring these 4 individuals in and trying to strategize over who was going to talk.
The odds-on favorite is Carl Davis.
The thing with Carl was his health wasn't all that great. And the amount of time that Carl was looking at spending in jail was clearly going to be more or less a death sentence for him. And I think at some point during the interviews, he really realized that.
And so Davis tells investigators all they need to hear. His story begins in the summer of 1999. Davis drives with Locke to the Cracker Barrel restaurant off I-94 in Kenosha to buy 20 kilos of cocaine from a dealer named Felipe Armando Melendez Rivas. With them is Shalonda Mason, who was not only Locke's girlfriend, but also a stripper and prostitute. On most days, Mason helps Locke run a sideline prostitution business. But today, her job is to offer Melendez a reason to go to Milwaukee.
And we now know that Melendez very much took a liking to Shalonda. Melendez even brought her a box of flowers. And that was how Michael Locke lured Melendez up to Milwaukee, because of his fascination or infatuation with Shalonda. And we believe that Michael Locke used that to get Melendez up to Milwaukee so that he could kill him.
The next day, Davis reports that Locke asks him to come to the house on Febrons. Davis will later testify, "When I walked in there," Locke said, "Armando is dead. He asked me to help him bury him in the backyard. I grabbed a foot and he grabbed the head and we drug him out the back door. Put him in the hole. I put some dirt over him." But that is not the end of Davis's story.
Carl Davis also told us how a year later, in 2000, how another hole was prepared, and we believe this was the hole for Eugene Chaney.
A few nights after the second hole is dug on Febrons, Davis is outside the house Locke owns on 53rd Street when Eugene Chaney arrives with a bag full of money for a cocaine deal with Michael Locke. Next thing Davis sees is Locke and Cooper carrying Chaney, still alive, his hands and feet bound. Davis says they came out and threw Chaney in the back of the truck. Chaney kept asking to be released. Cooper told him to shut up and popped him one. While Cooper sits in the back with Chaney, Davis drives to Febron Street, pulls the truck into the garage, and waits outside.
The homicide of Eugene Chaney occurred in the garage at 49th and Freebronx. We know that from Carl Davis. Carl Davis was there when that happened. He was standing at the overhead garage door at the time Donald Cooper was placing a plastic bag over Eugene Chaney's head.
With Carl Davis's eyewitness account, prosecutors have what they need to move forward with charges of first-degree murder against Donald Cooper and Michael Locke. In the trial, Carl Davis describes what he heard from outside the garage.
The sounds of Eugene Chaney being suffocated in the back of the car, I think that was probably one of the best pieces of evidence that came out. It's hard to get that picture out of your head when you know that this person was suffocated and then put into a hole.
Michael Locke is found guilty of the murders of both Chaney and Melendez. 5 months later, he is also found guilty of mortgage fraud. Carl Davis, Ed Hankins, Keontae Clay, Geronda McCrae, and Kevin Slayman all plead guilty, and all receive reduced sentences for testifying against Locke. Donald Cooper goes to trial and is found guilty of the murder of Eugene Chaney. From jail, Locke maintains his innocence.
Michael Locke did not kill anybody. Michael Locke did not conspire to kill anybody. Michael Locke did not, I repeat, did not choose to lie on other people like he's been lied on to go home. But I forgive everyone that has participated, and when my day comes that I part this Red Sea, I'm going to put Wisconsin behind. Thank you.
I think in all of the prosecutions, every single one of them, I think the jury was able to discern that this was, again, a unique individual, and that he had behaved so viciously and he had behaved so inhumanely to so many people through this process that I think the jury was able to see that this was a different type of person and that he posed a really significant risk to this community.
But just to be sure, the prosecutors go one step further, bringing Locke into court one more time, now for his role as a pimp. November 2010, Michael Locke enters a courtroom bound to a wheelchair. He is not injured. It is a security measure. Locke has been convicted of 2 murders. No one is taking any chances. He is here today to be sentenced following his conviction for the last piece of his criminal enterprise, the prostitution business.
We'd been hearing about this for years and years, about how Michael Locke had girls that would travel all over the country and dance at strip clubs, and they would be engaged in prostitution. It didn't seem like it was that important until I started to talk to some of those girls.
One is Alicia Winters. Out on the street with 2 children, Locke lets her stay at the house on Febron Street, and then sends her and other young women to small remote strip clubs around the Midwest. One in Holdridge, Nebraska.
When she got there, she would be told, you can come back home when you make $5,000. She was a black girl from Milwaukee that was out in the middle of nowhere. I'm sure that she did everything that she could in order to come back here to see her kids again.
Locke's defense is that he simply took money for booking the girls at strip clubs. They chose to engage in prostitution. But one more jury finds him guilty. He is given a sentence of 30 years, which is added to a sentence of 10 years for the kidnapping of Leoporian Ford, 13 years for mortgage fraud, and 2 life sentences without parole for the murder of Felipe Armando Melendez Rivas and the murder of Eugene Chaney. With so many convictions won, prosecutors feel they have sent the message that needs to be heard.
That if you're going to engage in this level of sophisticated, pervasive crime, that we're going to hold you accountable for every bit of it.
Locke is appealing his cases, and for now, the man who was raised in church continues to put his faith in God.
But if you notice in the Bible, every great man has a testimony. And this is going to be my testimony. When you take Daniel in the lion's den, they basically put Daniel in the lion's den. And that's basically me. Right now I'm in the lion's den. But I'm here to tell you, I will be out of jail real soon. Because what's impossible with man is possible with God.
On the block of 4900 Febron Street, a quiet life has resumed. The house where the bodies were buried has been sold and is occupied again. The nightmare here is over.
Since this case unfolded, and based on a lot of other initiatives, we've actually seen the violent crime rate dropping in Milwaukee. And this is an important message for us to be able to send, that if you think you're going to establish yourself as a crime boss in Milwaukee, we as a community just aren't going to tolerate it, and we're not going to allow you to live that gangster dream.
Michael Locke is out of business, but the investigation of his life of crime continues because there is still a lingering question. Are there more bodies out there?
I'm concerned there are, and we have always maintained that.
Even today, police officers are following up on reports of additional victims of Michael Locke. So far, they have found nothing. But everyone fears that one day, remnants of Locke's terror will surface again.
Innocence of believing that beauty alone could save me. But beauty, I've learned, is not salvation. It's surrender.
I still limp slightly. The doctors say it'll never fully heal.
But that limp has become my rhythm. Imperfect, honest, alive. It reminds me where I've been and what I almost destroyed to get here. Sometimes I visit Granada. Lucia's grave is small, surrounded by wildflowers. Someone, I never know who, always leaves a single glass bead on the headstone. Transparent, fragile, endless. The first time I saw it, I laughed softly through tears. The world has its own way of writing poetry. Spain still dances. Every street, every alleyway hums with rhythm. Footsteps of strangers carrying the same hunger, the same hope. But when I see young dancers now, I don't see rivals. I see mirrors. Fragile, luminous, temporary. Art is not about winning. It's about remembering that every step we take is borrowed from those who came before and given to those who will come after. The spotlight isn't evil, it's just blinding. The trick is to step back before you can't see who you are. Fame made me forget my humanity. Silence taught me to hear it again. The students call me Maestra Elena now, a title that used to sound distant. Now it feels like home. Every morning, before class begins, I light a candle on the edge of the floor. Not for God, not for forgiveness, but for memory. The flame trembles with each movement, as if it too wants to dance. Sometimes I imagine Lucia standing beside me, barefoot, smiling, her voice echoing softly. Even broken steps are music. And I whisper back, and even silence can dance. The fire that once consumed has become warmth. The applause that once blinded has become stillness. The dancer who once stole the spotlight now teaches others how to share it. When people ask what happened to La Fiera, I tell them she retired. But sometimes, when the studio is empty and the night air hums through the open window, I let her return for a moment. One step, one breath, one heartbeat. She dances not for fame, not for guilt, but for gratitude. Then she fades again, leaving behind only me. A woman who finally learned that redemption doesn't erase the past, it makes peace with it. The blood on the stage has long dried. The applause has stopped echoing. But somewhere, a child claps off-beat, laughing, and the world keeps turning. Maybe that's enough. Ambition led to envy. Envy led to betrayal. Betrayal led to guilt. Guilt led to humility. Humility led to grace. Redemption didn't arrive in applause. It arrived in the quiet acceptance of imperfection. And perhaps that is the truest art of all. To fall, to bleed, to rise limping, and still dance.